Today, I'm proud to tell you about a new tool that we've just launched called the HR Healthchecker, and I've invited two people who know all about it to help me do that. Welcome to Talking Work, the employment law podcast by Jus Laboris. In each episode, we invite a different guest to discuss what's happening in the world of work. If you're an HR professional of any kind, this podcast is for you. Markus Janko is a partner in our German law firm Klimt HR Lawyers, and he's head of our International Innovation Committee. Hannah Price is a legal director at our UK law firm Lewis Silkin, and she's got loads of experience of auditing HR practices, which is what our new tool is all about. Hi both.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
So, Hannah, let me start with you. In terms of auditing an HR practice, what kind of audits have you tended to do for clients in the past?
Well, these can vary. Sometimes employers want a high-level overview of all of their HR practices, so then we'll review template employment contracts as well as reviewing HR policies and practices. For other employers, they might have a particular concern about one area, and then we'll end up doing a deeper dive into that particular area. So, for example, around immigration compliance or in respect of working hours or pay practices.
Okay, and what sort of issues might you typically identify for those clients?
Well, when we undertake an audit for a client, we'll always then prepare a report for the client at the end of that audit process. And at the front of that report, we'll often use a traffic light system. So where they are compliant, we'll flag that issue or that area as green. Where an area needs changing, but it's relatively low risk, we'll flag that as amber. And where an item needs urgent attention, we'll flag that as red. One example of an audit that we undertook back in 2017 was an audit we undertook for a client across all of their international operations. And happily, in the main, that audit didn't give rise to any particular concerns, but it did reveal that the company was not GDPR ready, with GDPR, of course, being introduced in 2018. And so what it allowed the employer to do was to spend time really getting to grips with what they needed to do from a GDPR perspective well in advance of the May 2018 deadline.
Okay, and I guess one situation in which an employer might want to do an audit is when a new HR director comes in and wants to know more about the HR practice that they've taken on. So, what sort of other situations might there be, Hannah, in which an audit would be useful?
So yes, that's a common scenario. And we also sometimes have clients wanting to undertake an audit post-acquisition or where a business has grown very rapidly across multiple jurisdictions without much centralized control. And the company wants to get a handle on whether there are any HR issues lurking. And then for other clients, actually, an audit can become a regular part of their HR cycle. So given that employment is a rapidly changing area of law, they may want to undertake an HR audit every 3 to 5 years, for example.
So, one thing someone mentioned to me about doing an audit is that it can sound like quite a scary process. Who knows what it might reveal? So, Marcus, tell me, should people be nervous?
Not at all, because we know how it sometimes works. You run through a due diligence process. You take weeks or days, sometimes months, depending on what kind of organization you're looking at. But there is a much faster way to do a kind of pre-audit, not a whole audit, but to get an idea how you whether there are some fields of action you might need to tackle. And this is what the HR Healthchecker tool allows you to get a general and first idea based on the employment law journey, based on the cycle of employment from beginning to the end. You just answer some particular generic questions and just get an idea of topics you may need to think of when you are doing an integration, when you're picking up your job as a new HR director. And you just want to know, is there anything I want to tackle? Have I thought about every item which is important during an employment relationship, a HR relationship?
So, Marcus, take us through how the tool works.
So you just go on the website, which is mentioned in the show notes, and you just answer basic question: yes, no, not sure. And after a few minutes, you just get a first result and get a report how ready you are and which topics you may take care of during your practice.
Yeah, and it's worth stressing that the process only takes a few minutes of your time. So tell me, Marcus, what areas of law does the tool actually cover?
Yeah, we put a lot of thought in this, and you can just look at specific topics. But what we thought, what is important to know, and we have had a look at the cycle of employment, and it's a normal employment journey. And we first looked at recruitment, then the types of employment contracts and terms of conditions. Then something like working hours, time off, pay and benefits, health and safety issues, discrimination, data privacy, confidentiality, and non-competition. Then very important, especially in Germany and some other countries, employee representation. Then in case of especially transaction business transfers and pensions, and last but not least, termination of employments.
Hmm. And can you use it for any country?
Yes, because we looked at the nature of employment, and what we then just found out that specific questions and generic questions can be asked in each and every country. So the tool can be used for each and every country, and you get a report. And most of the questions it asks are likely to be relevant to any country in the world. So, for example, in one of the sections, it asks you, do you know what your legal obligations are in relation to mental health and of your employees? And this is something what you can look at from an not country specific perspective, and you get an idea whether I have or you have, the company has, any kind of fields of actions, and if you want to trigger any actions if you want.
Hmm. And so I guess the best thing to do is then to look at the report you've downloaded, have a little think about the questions and their ramifications, and maybe talk to a couple of colleagues and basically work out if there are gaps you'd like to address, correct?
Indeed, you get a very first rough idea, and especially in sense of a benchmark to other competitors. Is my company ready enough, to go into the market from an HR law perspective, from an employment law perspective? Or do I have any kind of critical items I need to tackle? And this is what the first rough report gives you and informs you about. Do I have any gaps to be completed, to be filled, or I am ready to go with my company, or do I have any critical points I need to tackle and take care of?
Perfect. Well, thank you both for that. As I say, the tool is live now, and we've put a link to it in the notes to this episode. Don't be afraid to have a go and just see what you come up with. If nothing else, it should give you a little window on the sorts of things to consider in each of the areas of law. Whether you then choose to follow up on those or how you do it is entirely up to you. You can find Hannah's and Marcus's contact details in the notes, and mine are there as well. You're always welcome to contact me on anything to do with employment law, and I'll either answer your query directly, or if you need an expert in a particular country, say, I'll put you in touch with the right person. Do browse around our website, by the way. There's loads of information there on all sorts of employment-related topics at usaboris.com. I'm Deborah Ishihara. See you again next time. That's it for this episode of Talking Work, but we'll be back very soon with more insights from our guests from around the world. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You can also visit usaboris.com to access all our content, resources and tools.